Okay, so here we are. So welcome everybody to the News with Obi. My name is Obi, and my platform, the News with Obi, we talk about all things news, politics, everything happening in our local community and around the world. And a lot of our talk evidently has been going on with COVID. And I've talked to a few doctors on here. I've talked to people in politics, but I really had to include school kids, people going back to school. It looks like schools might be really reopening in August. So the topic for today is inclusion and diversity in schools. And I figured there was no other better person to get to talk about this than Sarah. Like I mentioned earlier, Sarah is, she is located in Maryland. And I'm gonna read a little bit of her bio. She's a regional technology coordinator in Maryland. And she's also Google Certified Innovator, Google Education Trainer, and the founder of EduMatch. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, EduMatch.
So
yeah.
Sarah has a broad resume, and I'm sorry if it's buffering, but we're gonna try to make it work. Can you guys still hear us? Sarah, can you hear me on Instagram?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, Dr. Sarah, a change maker globally. That's what's up. Yes. So Sarah, just to break the ice a little bit and to introduce you to the people that are tuning in on Instagram, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I am a regional technology coordinator, as Obi said. I live in Virginia, work in Maryland. I've been in education for the last 15 years, so now going on 16. Time really flies. This is crazy. But I've taught in the classroom for 10 plus years, and then also I teach master's classes at a local university. So that is a little bit about me. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here and to chat with you today. So thanks so much for having me, Obi.
Thank you, Sarah. And don't forget your audience over on Zoom as well. Remember, we're manning 2 devices. So
right.
So let's dive into it. So how has COVID-19 affected equity in education, you would say? How has that really been a game changer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought this topic up because equity is something that I'm really, really passionate about. It's something that really has to be at the forefront of our work as educators. So as schools or public institutions, and even the charter schools or private schools, our mission, we need to serve all of our students, and to borrow from a friend of mine, also each of our students. So that's very important. The fact that each student gets what they need. So when we look at equity is multi-layered, right? There's many, many dimensions to equity. A lot of people, when you say the word equity, then they think of access to devices and to the internet. And these are extremely important. Like right now, when we are doing remote learning and we just have access, our students obviously need access to the devices to be able to access the content in the curriculum. But let's dig a little deeper into the whole device piece, right? The availability of devices. There might be one device that's available for, the whole family. So that, if you have a rather large family, then that's not equitable. That's not the same as a kid who has his or her own iPhone that they walk around with in their pocket, or their own laptop. That also brings me to what kind of access, right? Is the device that they have in the house a cell phone, or is it a computer? And you can, have you ever tried to fill out a job application on a cell phone? That's like almost impossible to do. So we also have to think about different factors now that the learning is taking place at home, such as internet access at home. Do they have access to the internet at home? Parent availability, because many people still have to work and may not be able to be there to be present and give that support to their students. And also access to resources. And I'm sure we're probably going to talk about that a little later. But there's also persisting issues. Even though we're in a new situation with COVID, there's always been the digital use divide, where, some students, when they were learning, it was very inequitable by zip code. So some students would have opportunities to create, and while others were getting drill and kill. So we need to be very mindful of the digital use divide, as well as our capacity as educators to provide transformational learning opportunities, as well as the capacity to adapt, in this pandemic. And also, while there is a pandemic going on, so social emotional learning is very important for students, educators, parents, just everyone right now. That's huge.
Right. So there's clearly some kind of disparity going on with the digital learning, you would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you, some counties are doing it right. The one that I work with, and I'm not saying this out of any bias, but just because I do, I was impressed by the response of our CEO and leadership. Some things that they have started doing have been to pass out devices from the carts within the schools to each student who needs one. So not just to each household, but if you have 3 kids enrolled in that school and you say that you need access, then you will get 3 Chromebooks given to you. And they've also partnered with Comcast for the Comcast Essentials. Not everyone qualifies for Comcast Essentials, so they have also bought supplemental hotspot. And in terms of building capacity, I know our team has been cranking out workshops just around the clock just to increase that capacity to deliver those transformational learning opportunities. So those are a couple things that schools and districts might be able to do.
And someone is agreeing with you. MJ Macaulay Wright says, that's incredible, a device per child. That's awesome. But my question really is, if these resources were available before now, how come it wasn't being fully utilized? Why did we have to wait till there's a pandemic to know that we can actually give a device to a child, like one device to each child?
Right, and that's something that that the pandemic, I mean, this is really a tragedy on a global scale, but it's bringing to light many issues that were already existing, globally. So so many of these things that we're seeing now, hopefully when we're on the other side of this, then these are things that the positive gains that we get as a result of this are things that we can hold on to.
And so Ms. Class in Session says it wasn't a priority before now. Well, clearly we see that what they make a priority and is something that they can just let go for a while. But now in terms of online teaching and students with disabilities, how have they been able to accommodate students that have disabilities?
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. There are, when it comes to students with disabilities, then there are special, there have already been some requirements in place that are continuing. However, now it is even more so the need to step that up. So I know that I see teachers in the special education department in our webinars constantly. They're working very hard. I can only speak about what I see.
Right.
So some things I've heard from them have been smaller group check-ins via Zoom or Google Meets. So maybe one-on-ones with students to support in the instructional process. As before, then it was a federal mandate that websites were 504 compliant. So this is even more crucial during these times right now. There's various tools that come as that have accessibility options in there. Like, for example, in a Microsoft suite, there's immersive reader, excuse me. There's screen readers, and we do a lot of Google in our district. So there are captions on Google Meet and Google Slides, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of tools that are being used, and I'm sure that there will be more developments as these products are continuously rolling out updates to meet the needs of students.
Oh, by the way, anybody that has any questions for Sarah, please feel free to type it in the comment section and I'll read it out to her. She can state herself as well, so she can address those questions. And Sarah, I don't mean to be calling you Sarah just because I omit the doctor part. I've
No,
known you for way
no.
long, and I know
That's
you
my
guys
name.
with the doctorate degrees, like really adamant about being called doctor, and you should.
No.
So, girl, like we go way back before the doctor. So I
Oh yeah,
apologize.
yeah. Hey, no, that's not needed at all. That's my name, so you know.
So, are there any, now that everything has shifted online, are there any things in place to continue to teach kids, or like, let's say, if the importance of equality, anti-discrimination, harassment? I know they're not in a classroom setting, but I'm sure they might still be experiencing some of that on some level, right? So are there any ways or anything in place to address those things at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that there's been a shift towards digital citizenship over the past few years that we've kind of seen grow within the educator community, as well as you know, within my district. I've noticed that as well. I can speak to that in just a second, but just wanted to kind of mention that there's two schools of thought when it comes to digital citizenship, and both are important. Both are very important, but one is kind of the initial way that it was rolled out, which was kind of reactive, whereas, you know, we want to put things in place so that you don't violate these rules. And then there's been another movement that has also come up where students are learning what they can do positively online to help support themselves, set themselves up for success in the future, things of that nature. So both of those in tandem, you know, that those are things that would be encompassed under digital citizenship. So I know that on one side of it, on the first side, I talked about the kind of reactive way. Then there are programs that exist to monitor different incidents and to be able to just kind of make sure that students are using technology not in a negative way, so to speak, right? So yeah, as Stephanie said, creating a digital footprint, absolutely. And in addition, then there are certification programs for educators. We're doing one right now in my district where they're just kind of looking at the opportunities that are out there to support students. And there's also, I'll give a shout out right now to digcitcommit.org,
Okay.
which is several institutions have partnered up to promote positive digital citizenship online. So those are, there are those in effect, and you know,
I'm actually really impressed that all of these things are in place in a short period of time. Maybe they were in place before now, but the implementation of it is actually quite impressive. And that was a concern when I was, you know, writing up the questions for today. I was wondering, okay, now that everything has shifted online, how does that transition? But it's really great that there's some things in place to really help with that.
right.
So with all the new shifts going on, we cannot forget you guys, the educators, and I see you have some of your educator friends joining us today.
Yeah.
What would you say is the difficulty teachers are facing during this time?
Oh, wow. I would say, I mean, first and foremost, we're in a pandemic, and that's going to affect each of us on a human level. You know, everyone has their health to worry about, the health of their loved ones to worry about, their own mental health. And on top of that, then this is brand new. Like, we've never faced a circumstance to this magnitude in our field that I can think of. I mean, I've been teaching since 2004. I've never seen anything like this. Right. Never experienced anything like this as a student. So a lot of people are kind of building the plane in the air. So to speak, building the airplane as it's flying.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's, yeah, so that is kind of difficult to deal with, more than kind of, but I mean, you know, and I see what Melody said, health is a number one priority. And I mean, you know, sadly, we don't know what, you know, we don't know that everyone's going to be safe, and that, you know, nothing is guaranteed during this time. So that takes just a huge toll a lot of times. And also the balance, as Stephanie said, such a tough balance, the balance of what you need to do professionally as well as taking care of yourself. And for some people also, their children are doing remote learning, so they have to balance that as well. So
Right.
being a parent, and even, just low attendance at the synchronous sessions, sometimes that becomes an issue as well. But this is definitely a challenging time. And
I mean, for you and the educators that we have in line, that joined us on Instagram, would you say that your workload is doubled now than it was before?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, I could say in my role as a regional tech coordinator, there's about 20 of us on the team of different roles, but we all do the same thing. And yeah, I can say that this has probably been the most intense time period that I've encountered during that time. So yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And someone is saying a balance of physical, mental health is so hard. So my question to you guys is, what are you doing personally to help yourself with the balance? And I know it's tough, but are there any tips that you can leave for the viewers or the fellow educators about what you do that really helps you to really maintain this balance?
Yeah, I would say really you got to take it day by day. That's first and foremost. Like every day we make it, and it's been a successful day or a semi-successful day, or even one thing went successfully, then that's a win. Do the best that you can under the circumstances and reach out when you need to. Fill your own bucket. And one last thing I would leave educators with is to get connected, get yourself a network. You could start off wherever you are. Facebook, there's so many communities, global communities of people just helping one another. And I'll also put in a plug for EduMatch, an organization that I founded. And that's pretty much what we do. We're educators growing together, lifting one another up. So yeah. So definitely find your people for sure.
And I see somebody said day drinking. That always helps. And she said also that connection has helped her. Having a network is always a good thing. Having like a backbone, a support system is always a good thing in these times, whether you are an educator, just in general, because this time has been really hard for a lot of people mentally, and we have to find a way to get through it together. So Sarah, like they're saying that your leadership, your district is really blessed to have your leadership. And please, if you have any questions for Sarah, please type it in. We really want to make sure that we really touch on all parts of education when it comes to the COVID-19 and moving forward. Now that schools are beginning to, well, not schools, states are beginning to open back up gradually. I was listening to Dr. Fauci today, and they were asking him if August was a good timeline to open up, and he was still saying no at that point. Right. So for you and the educators, and I see Michelle is also an educator. She's also one of my trainers. She just logged on. And I'm asking you guys, do you think opening up schools in August is a good idea? If it is, even if it's not, what procedures, what precautions need to be taken to really open back up?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I'm seeing some things. I'm seeing some guidance come out from different states and districts and things of that nature, and they're proposing a lot of different things. I would say that we speaking from me and my own opinion, I'm not a medical doctor, but I don't see it happening in the fall. Not like how it was before. I'm seeing like some rollout plans where they might do different weeks for different students, or different grade levels, trying to minimize the number of students. I don't know. This is very, I don't know.
This is new for all of us.
Yeah, this is new. So I have no idea what it's going to look like when we go back. But I just really hope that that they do it safely and responsibly, And
like someone is saying that they don't think CDC recommendations are realistic. I think at this point right now, the only person we acknowledge is Fauci, you know, so.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And the buildings are not ready, the teachers are not ready. So you guys are saying as much as you have a heavy workload, it's still health first, safety first. If they're not ready, don't open back up. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's my personal opinion. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ms. Classen session said our state has said they can afford it. So where does that leave us? What state are you in, by the way? And if you guys have any questions, please type it in. Sarah is a great resource. She is Dr. Sarah Jane Thomas. I'm sorry, Sarah. I got to get it right.
Sarah is totally fine. That was my birth name. You know, that is still my name, so I'm good.
South Carolina. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, and again, I know we've touched on this a little bit, but I know that in the U.S., we have cases, like you said, disparities in digital learning. There's some places, some parts of the world, most parts of the world, developing countries don't have the kind of access we have in the United States, and they're definitely struggling. UNICEF is trying to figure out a way to really make sure that these kids that all kids still get educated despite being, out of the classroom. So with other countries that are dealing with not having devices and not having internet, do you guys have any suggestions because I know they're going to be talking to educators like you guys on how to really go about this. Any suggestions on how they can really go about fixing that?
Wow. So you're saying like for countries that don't have access to the internet and to Wi-Fi, man, I kind of feel like I'm not, there's no easy answers for that. There's no easy answers. There's going to be, I see what Melody is saying, it's time to throw traditional schooling out. So I definitely think that it's time to, rethink a lot of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. There's no easy answers at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it would take a lot of collaboration and a lot of brainstorming to figure it all out.
I mean, with the pandemic, it's shown a lot of things that we didn't think were possible are now possible. Twitter just announced that their employees could work from home indefinitely if they wanted to. So who knew, right?
Right.
Yeah. So a question came in. We have to innovate our way, and all the issues addressed today can be ignored in our new system. Right. Yeah, so it's not going to be an easy process. And like you said, we might have to rethink traditional way of schooling. So again, I want to address teachers and what you guys need to really stay grounded and not be overwhelmed. So if there is one thing, it's probably more than one thing, but if there's like a few things that you can say about really staying grounded in these hard times, what would it be? For teachers?
Yeah, I would say definitely to make time for yourself, and that's very, very hard, when there's so much going on and there's an increased workload, but that is super important. I know for me personally, then just, some kind of physical activity, that's very helpful. I see you're getting your runs on, so that is very inspiring to watch, Yeah, so, I mean, yes, definitely you got to take that time to fill your own bucket before you can fill anyone else's. So.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add to that? And Michelle is saying it's hardest in the schools where she taught special needs children living in impoverished societies. Yeah, it's definitely difficult for societies that don't have, like I said, constant electricity, constant Wi-Fi, or even access to devices. And I'm also reading, stay connected, reach out for support. Yes, get outside when you can. Yep, so definitely doing everything to not be preoccupied, and also watch less of the news. I know that sounds weird coming from me, but you have to be you have to be selective about what you listen to. You can't have the news turned on all day, every day. Even me, as a news junkie, I actually limit how much of that I take in, even though I can handle news and the ups and downs of it, but still I have to limit how much of it I watch. Yeah. So I really want to, if there's any other questions, please type it in. But I really want to thank you guys as educators. My mom was a school teacher for 26 years before she retired a few years ago. She taught in DC public schools, which is not easy. Um, and I know how tough it was because at one point they had me in her classroom, and I in high school, and I got in fights a lot, so they had to take me out. I don't know why they wanted me in her classroom to begin with, but so I really want to thank you guys for everything that you do. And really, another reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I know that this is stressful for a lot of people, and especially for my educator friends, because I've been talking to a few and I've been hearing them like, okay, how can I help? And this is my way of providing the platform as an outlet to really help. So thank you and kudos. And yeah, people are saying limit watching the news and really getting connected with other people as well. Sarah, is there anything else you want to add before we leave?
No, I just want to thank you so much for having me on today. Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's watching as well. And I mean, if anybody wants to connect with me, I don't have all the answers, but I would love to chat about any, anything in this whole pandemic situation. We can all help each other out. So I'm Sarah at edumatch.org, edumatch.org.
Cool. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be well, stay safe, everybody, and stay connected with people. And that's the only way we're going to get through this. All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. Great discussion, ladies. Very important topic. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone.